Okay, fam, I am gonna give us a really, really good breakdown today. I think we're gonna like this because we get to talk about TV. And that's something that I think as a group we all like, right? I think we can get behind like a deep breakdown of TV shows, right? So this is it. Like TV for me, I mean that's the main thing, right? That's the main vessel by which we break stuff down, right? Right. Most of our good shows, most of our good stuff comes from TV. Like now, right? We're not reading as many books as we used to read, right? So it's changed in that regard, right? Which is cool. That's just how cultures evolve, right? I still do a lot of like ebooks, audiobooks, right? Which to me is kind of a cool thing, right? So all right, so I want to get into this anthology. I want to talk about these TV shows because it's a big cultural thing for us right now. And this is what I do, man. This is what I've been doing for you guys. Is just kind of like breaking these shows down, breaking down modern myths versus, not even versus, but like just kind of recognizing that we have modern mythology, we have, we have emerging mythology, and this is kind of the realm that I dwell in. Like I dwell in this realm of let's talking about mythology, right? So anyone who's coming in now, this is a good time. We're gonna do a good breakdown for you guys. Usually I'll take on 3 topics and I'll kind of just like, have some fun with a few topics. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to really get into it. So if you're in like, MythLab, I've been doing these daily now and I've kind of locked into doing these like every week, right? Like, I mean, doing a good slate of them every week. So last week I did all 5 days, right? So every day I got in and I did a MythLab. Sometimes we're doing a couple in a day. And, it's feeling good because it's coming together for the channel. And we've been able to share a lot of, I've been able to share a lot of good knowledge. That's really been the main thing. Like the strongest point that I can always make is that this site, this channel is always about like sharing knowledge. And that is what we do. Like that is what we do, right? I just have to be really honest about that. That's what I feel most good about. So in my role here, like I said, I am here for your mythological query. Today seems like it's a new day for me, and it's like a different channel. I feel like it's probably the same channel. I'm just drinking tea in the morning, and I guess somehow that's got me feeling a certain way about who I am, right? Which is cool. It's good to come into it with some good energy. So I got some good energy. If you guys have some questions, like the chats are open. We're live here on TikTok, as well as YouTube. So thanks to everybody for stopping in. And again, 9 World Chronicles, the place where we start breaking stuff down. So now we got a couple people who are coming in now. So far, I just wanted everybody to kind of get an opportunity to get in before I started getting to the real juicy stuff. But now I think it's an appropriate time. I've kind of laid out what we're going to talk about. Like you can see on the screen essentially what we're talking about, right? We're talking about like some of the major mythologies that we saw on TV. Like this is the late night TV arsenal right here. Like the Twilight Zone, of course, being like the absolute, I think the OG, obviously because age and like longevity and all that stuff, right? But then you got 2 really, really good follow-ups that had like a totally different twist, right? So I'm gonna break this down to you guys right now, like only in the way that I'm capable of doing. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm real nice with our mythology right now. I'm telling you guys, look, this is me right now.
Baddest motherfuckers of all time.
Yeah, you see that? I'm one of the baddest motherfuckers of all time when it comes to handling your mythological queries, right? So let's just go ahead and get right into it and enjoy some fun. So the first one up, obviously, that we're talking about is a Twilight Zone. Now, just for some perspective, like each one of these shows works in a very different way. Like these are modern anthologies. These are 3 series that really defined what strange meant, like what it looked like, what it felt like when we had to be like, oh no, there's an alien world watching us. Like this is what it felt like. In a lot of ways, it did some things that kind of decentered humans. Like it decentered us in ways that were weird. Like now we're under this like observation. Like we're being watched by alien species. We're being judged by stuff that isn't us. Like that's the whole thing. So with each one of them, we get a different kind of horror. It's a different kind of horror. Like Twilight Zone really was still more like a psychological type of horror, right? Whereas like the Tales from the Darkside, this is like it's more folklore. Like it actually is based a whole lot more on actual just folklore. And then by the time we get to Tales from the Crypt, it was just like twisted moralities. But every one of these shows is a nostalgia trip. Like it's taking us down to eras, and like especially with Twilight Zone, man, they're really showing us like what we fear. Like I remember the obsolete man, right? Like it was like this is you're worried about being run out of society, right? You're afraid of being replaced. Like all these things that were just it mad real fears for actual humans. Like they didn't go anywhere. We didn't run from the fears, and they did a good job kind of projecting what these fears were on TV, like live and direct, right? This is how it went down, right? So this is where we are with these shows, okay? So they're all kind of nostalgia trips in themselves, and I remember, I'll be able to break down, some of my favorite episodes, right? So let's talk about Twilight Zone first, and the Twilight Zone again. This is the oldest one. Like the Twilight Zone came out before everything else, and it deserves to be talked about. And like the reason why, by the way, I was watching Twilight Zone yesterday. I'm not even joking with you guys. Not for prep. I was watching Twilight Zone not for prep, right? I was watching some Twilight Zone, and then I said, oh, I should talk about Twilight Zone on the stream tomorrow, right? Because it's so impactful and how much impact it had on like how we watch TV, right? For at least for my generation, like this stuff came out, and I'm sure the previous generation, like it comes out in 1959. This matters a lot, right? This matters a lot because like at this time, this is 1959, y'all. It's not a lot of TVs out there in circulation in 1959, right? In 1959, it's a scant few TVs, and everybody who had one, you had one. You didn't have multiple TVs, right? So it was one set in the house. So that means everybody's watching the same thing, right? Nobody was streaming anything else. Everybody was watching the same thing. You had one TV in the house. It was only 3 networks. It was CBS, it was NBC, and it was ABC. That's it. And this is all live TV at this period of time, right? So this is how people watch stuff when it came on. And for this show, you would get like 20 to 40 million viewers an episode, which in 1969, I think 20 or 40 million people is everybody that was in the United States for the most part, right? That was everybody was watching this, right? Even now, like it's still streaming major. There's a reason for this, right? And when you watch the Twilight Zone, you're gonna see a lot of stuff that comes from like real culture, like paranoia, destroying like paranoia, like all that McCarthyism, all that stuff is right there. It's live and direct, right? All that politics, Cold War fears, like space race, everything, every delusion that they could come up with, like they were all inside. Like culturally, the Twilight Zone was all up in our noodles, man. Culturally, the Twilight Zone, like Mr. Seigert, like he put his finger on exactly who we were, right? He really broke that stuff down. Like he was playing with a whole different dimensional of work, man. This guy was like on a whole nother level. I'm telling you, like, this dude's walking around, I'm telling you, he's like, look, man.
No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander.
That's
I'm
right.
the best ever.
I'm the best ever. Like, that's who Rob Steiger is. He's got to be saying that. Like, I'm the best ever. Because he really was putting his stuff down in a whole nother way, right? Like, this is who he is. I'm telling you, me and this guy, like, I look at him and I'm like, as far as storytelling, I'm with you there, right? I consider myself, right, like, not only just a connoisseur and an analyst of story, but I'm about that life too, right? Like, I'm absolutely, right? I'm about that life, right? That's me too. I'm about that life, right? So when I appreciate his stories and we break them down, like, this is the first one. Nobody set the table for him. He set the table for how all these other shows would come later. Now, Tales from the Darkside, just to keep the chronology of it right, Tales from the Darkside comes out, it's, 23 years, 24 years later that Tales from the Darkside comes out, right? And Tales from the Darkside, this is like a rise in like this syndicated horror. This is a new level of horror. It's a lot more gruesome. This is the early 80s. And man, I'm telling you guys, man, like walking down that timeline corridor, like the 80s is off the hook, man. The 80s is another era of decadence. Like, we have to forget about, we forget about this stuff a lot, right? That the 80s were all about decadence. It was mad jumping off in the 80s. Like, you know what I'm saying? How we excuse that, like, we talk about the wrongs, but we forget the 80s was really, really an insane period, right? So this is where we start getting, like, Tales from the Darkside. This runs from, like, 83 to 88. Like, this is a memorable series. I've watched a lot of this series. I'm pretty sure I haven't watched every episode of it. Like, I know a lot of them, and I have my favorites. And then, of course, they have some good movies. So, like, I know that series pretty well. I feel good about that series overall. And, I would say it was definitely something I mess with. Like, and the thing about it is, it was really the first scary show. It was really the first scary show for me as a kid. Like, because it came on, like, this thing came on like 11 o'clock, and this is deep in the streets back for TV at this time, right? Came on about 11 o'clock, and, I'm supposed to go. So anytime I got to stay up, like, it'd be like a Friday night, I would get to stay up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm watching Tales from the Darkside, right? Like, I had to. That was my one thing, man. Like, I was not a maturing kid until I could stay up and watch Tales from the Darkside. That's 100% the truth. Like, that's how I saw the world. My worldview was that. It was like, we gonna watch Tales from the Darkside. So I would stay up, and it would always be like quiet in the house because nobody in my house stayed up late like this. I was the only one, that stayed up like that watching like creepy movies and stuff like that, right? And that music, like the way it intro to me had a psychological effect. Like, from the time that it comes on, I'm already feeling anxiety about it, right? Anxiety. So this also coincides with like the home, like VHS, like in 83, right? 83, like VCRs and all stuff start coming out. So it changed. Like, it was not just about the network. It, like local stations could buy and broadcast. Like, it was growing like independently. It was a lot of stuff going on. Viewer numbers in the 80s were really starting to drive up, and we were getting more fragmentation and more specialization. This is the era where we start really adapting Stephen King movies, so like that's integral in all this. And I've talked about Stephen King, on a couple occasions. Like, in fact, I just dropped a video about Stephen King like 2 days ago. Like, and so if you ever want to get a handle on his writing, if you want to get a handle on like some of his mythologies, like, I would definitely check that out, man. I do about a 20-minute breakdown, like all on Stephen King, like looking at his whole body of work, how it sinks in, right? So now we're at a stage where these are getting much higher budgets too. Like, there's more money going into it now, right? There's a lot more money going into how these shows are being produced. So they're getting budgets, man. They're getting real significant budgets, man. Like, they all got together, man. They were just like, come on now with it. Come on now.
Canada want. We want
more money. That's what they said.
More money.
They wanted more money.
More money from where?
Yeah.
Just more money.
Just more money.
Canada doesn't get enough money.
That's right, man.
Other countries have lots of money.
Yeah.
We want some of that money.
We want some of that money. And they got some of that money, and they started going into the budgets of like these productions. So as they're going down, as all three of these are kind of increasing, their budgets are getting stronger, right? Everybody's getting more money, so we get more attention to these. So we see these anthologies like really start to develop, right? Like this is the overall genre, like it's moving forward. Production styles changing, like the dark, like this whole dark world work. And then we get Tales from the Crypt, right? And this is 1989, right? So 1989, man, this was a good year TV wise. Like I used to watch this show. Like the thing about Tales from the Crypt is that it wasn't as serious as these other two shows, right? Like I would watch Tales from the Crypt with my grandpa. Like seriously, me and grandpops used to sit down and watch Tales from the Crypt together. He thought the Crypt Keeper was just hilarious. Like so clearly right off the bat, because because they weren't taking themselves too seriously with the Crypt Keeper, and we knew it allowed the show just to be a lot more chill, right? So that's just kind of how the show came about. It's a lot more chill show. So we're changing, and this is HBO. HBO is known for production, so now they're taking us in like a different direction when they're talking about TV, right? Like when we're starting to get into these type of shows, we're getting into a whole different direction now. Okay, so let's kind of get a little more into it. Let's get deeper into it. Okay, so when we start talking about the Twilight Zone, man, the Twilight Zone and Rod Serling were just on another level. Like they were literally on another level in terms of like the TV that they were actually making, like the storytelling that Rob Steiger was showing us, man. This guy right here is I'm telling you, I don't know if he gets enough credit for what he was coming up with story-wise, in 1959, right? This is on a whole nother level than anybody else because it's mass psychological. He had a lot of censorship issues, you can imagine, because he was constantly pushing the envelope. His shows had commentary about racism, war, politics, like a lot of them. Like he was really upfront with like making some like strong statements, like through this lens of the Twilight Zone. So that's kind of the back end side of it, right? But we're gonna stay true to what the Twilight Zone was. That's why we're here, to kind of get into the mythology of the Twilight Zone, right? So to understand the Twilight Zone, we gotta understand what the Twilight Zone actually is and what it isn't, right? The Twilight Zone itself is not a physical space, right? You don't go to the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone is not some place where you get in your car and you drive to the Twilight Zone. You don't go to the Twilight Zone, you end up in the Twilight Zone. That's how the Twilight Zone works, okay? You don't go there, you end up there. And you never know in advance that you're going to the Twilight Zone. The only time that you realize when you're in the Twilight Zone, it's already too late. That's the whole nature of the Twilight Zone. It's not a space, right? This is a cosmic threshold. And when you're experiencing the Twilight Zone, essentially, you've crossed the line between realities. Hang on one sec. I'm going to close this door. Hang on. Okay, so that's the issue with the Twilight Zone. Like, this is a liminal space, which forces us to kind of explain what are liminal spaces, right? Like, a liminal space is that place where reality starts to split a little bit, right? It's a threshold between realities. Every mythology, at least, has some type of liminal space, right? Liminal spaces are very important. If you're talking like Southern, like American Southern belief systems, or more indigenous or native belief systems, the swamps were liminal spaces, like in between spaces where beings could cross over. If you go to Greek mythology, liminal spaces were caves, like you go through a cave and end up in the underworld. So liminal spaces were great because they just were well, I guess they weren't great, but this is what they exist, and we move in these spaces all the time. Like, we're always moving it. And Rod Serling himself describes it. He says like the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition. That in itself is the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone is 100% that, right? And what you get with the Twilight Zone is where reality breaks down. Like, they're borrowing things, but overall, like, you're not going to get reality in the Twilight Zone. You know, now you start realizing stuff like, yeah, there's aliens who are, you know, watching and judging mankind. That's what's going on in the Twilight Zone, right? There's these time loops that just, you get sucked in, and it's just all up in your noodle, and you're never going to get out of these time loops. Like, you see weird stuff going on there, man. You see Talkie Tina right there, right? You see Talkie Tina, and it's problematic, man. You know, it's problematic. Now, I'm not saying that Talking Tina was not dispensing justice. I'm not saying that Talking Tina was not dispensing justice. Like, the pops in that Talking Tina episode, yeah, deserve it, right? Deserve it, right? You got what you deserve for not being nice to that little girl. Like, I get that. Don't marry a woman with children if you don't want to be nice to the kids, right? And that's where he was. So when she got Talkie Tina, like, she was representing justice. But this is what you got to deal with. When you step into, when you realize you're in the Twilight Zone, you're like, oh, man, right? You're like, oh, man, I'm in the Twilight Zone. Because it's already too late by the time you realize it. If you realize it, right, you might never actually come, like, sometimes people don't make the realization that they're like, I'm in the Twilight Zone. You're like, oh, man, why did I come to the Twilight Zone? Why did I was like, I typed in AutoZone and I ended up in the Twilight Zone, right? That's how it is. I thought I was in the zone, but it was the Twilight Zone. And it's a whole different space. And in this space, like, you get prophetic visions, you get, you know, reality manipulation. Like, almost anything can happen. Anything can happen in the Twilight Zone. Like, the Twilight Zone is just like a default for whatever, right? Whatever was going to happen, it's probably going to happen here. If you could envision it happening, it can actually happen here. And the thing about the Twilight Zone is that it's like a cosmic courtroom. You're going to get judged by what you did. You're going to get judged for being a racist, right? It does. Like, this is why he had trouble with this stuff, man, right? Because you're going to get punished for not being a good person. The Twilight Zone is brutal on that. It doesn't let you get away with a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm telling you guys right now.
Listen and listen good.
Okay?
I'm talking to you. Right? Me and Mr. T are talking to you. Listen and listen good. Okay? Because you never know when you're going to end up in the Twilight Zone. And you need to be ready. So prep yourself, because whatever you do bad, that's what the Twilight Zone is about to disrespect you for, right? If you were a Nazi, if you're a racist, you're going to be like a Jew in, you know, Poland in 1939, right? That's what it's going to give you. This thing has irony on lock. This is a place, like, one thing, like, reality might break down, but irony gets stronger. Like, it understands irony better than anybody else, right? Like, seriously, it understands irony better than anybody that I know. It will pull something that you did in your life out, and it's gonna be live and direct for everybody to see. It's gonna be live and direct for everybody to see. That's what the Twilight Zone is. This is not a place of forgiveness. The Twilight Zone is a place that wants that stuff to happen. It wants it to go down. It wants you, right?
No way.
Yes way.
Nobody understands us.
Yes.
And they won't understand until it is far too late.
See, that's what we be trying to tell you. You're not going to understand until it's far too late. Thank you, Henrietta, right? So the Twilight Zone is that liminal space. It is constantly returning to those themes of punishment and arrogance. These show themes of, like, fear of the unknown. We have paranoia. We have Cold War fears. We have anxiety, afraid of machinery. It has social commentary. It has poetic justices that happen all the time. You get humans disguised as aliens disguised as humans. Like, they had a meeting. It was like two different alien groups were like, yeah, I'm taking over Earth. Another group's like, no, we're taking over Earth, right? At the same time. So we're constantly being overrun, right? You get gremlins. I don't know if you've seen the most famous episode, the William Shatner episode, where he's on a plane. And it's terrible because he's looking at the gremlins actually tearing the plane apart. Like, the gremlins are sitting on the wing of the plane, and they're like, hey, look, they're waving to him while they tear the plane up, and then they disappear when anybody else looks, right? So they're driving him crazy on top of tearing the plane down. And this comes out of, you know, if you understand, you know, World War II era America, you understand why Gremlins was such like a terrifying thing, right? This is what Gremlins were. This is our culture. This is our war culture, like coming right back to us, right? We're 100% in that war culture, and the failure, like we were mass producing machinery, and then it's like, why is stuff always breaking? It was Gremlins. Planes would take off, so it was very much tied to it. So it was a very real thing. In the Twilight Zone, we got ghosts, right? We got cosmic beings that cross over into our realm, right? We got all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't want. And the thing about it is, like, it's got some absolutely legendary episodes, right? Right? The monsters are due on Maple Street. The neighborhood tears itself apart because of paranoia and lies. The Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, that's the William Shatner episode. Like, these are the ones you definitely got to check out. I'll put a link to, like, Twilight. Just go. I think you can probably watch the Twilight Zone on... Man, what is it on? I'll find what it's on, because I know I've watched some Twilight Zone very recently. I don't think it's Tubi, though. I'm not sure where it is, but I'll drop the link. I'll drop the links so you guys can catch up on Twilight Zone. Like, you need to. Like, culturally, understand mythology. Like, it's deep in the streets, man. Like, we can't go far without understanding Twilight Zone, man. That's just as real as it gets. Like, that's something I definitely look at as, like I said, as a super impactful show. I still watch that show right now. So like I draw a lot of analysis of that show, and shows that would come later, were benefited from this show. You probably don't have, X-Files. You may not have Stranger Things. So there's a lot of like entering the Twilight Zone was the first time we stepped into something that was surreal like that. Like that's the neighborhood that we got into, a surreal neighborhood. Like, this is what it is. He's telling you right from the beginning. I just loved how he introduced it, so you would know exactly like you have now entered. Dun 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 dun. Like, it was cold, man. It was ice, man. It was 100% ice, man. Loved it, man. So that brings us to Tales from the Darkside, man. And like, man, this is like a whole new way of seeing horror movies, right? Like seriously, this is George Romero. This is 1983. It goes for 5 years. It's like 90 episodes, and this is like Night of the Living Dead. So they kind of set it off. In a way where they were being very, very decisive about defining what kind of horror that they would be, right? They decided that they would be a whole new different type of horror, right?
That is correct.
Exactly, like a whole new type of horror that they introduced. And George Romero himself, I will talk about George Romero at some point, because he's also like a super impactful guy. Like what he did, is also very important. So I will talk about George Romero's work overall, and but by the time we get to this mythologies, right, like Tales from the Darkside, man, we're on a whole nother level. At least I start to feel like I felt like I said, there was that scariness that it gave that was it was just different, man. It was raw. It was 100% raw. And their most famous tales, like, they did such a brilliant job of kind of mixing in like modern thing, like it went on some modern themes, but some real like visually scarier manifestations. We didn't see stuff like Tales from the Darkside. So it's 1983, and this is like the spiritual, like, from Creep Show. Again, like the OG was Creep Show. Like this is a successor to Creep Show, and Creep Show actually is kind of deserving of its own mention. I'll have to break Creep Show down because it 100% deserves it. Creep Show is definitely a different type of show, and this is the extension. This is the successor to Creep Show, but it was a more like, instead of like just like a abstract reality, like the Twilight Zone is all abstraction and like irony and like karmic energy and stuff like that. For a large part, it was very psychological, and it picked at you. And it would, like I said, we watched it break William Shatner down. Like it did. We literally watched William Shatner get broken down by that whole Gremlin episode, right? This isn't Pennywise but it is psychological attack. So that's really like one of the big things. Like we're seeing a psychological attack early on when we're talking about early Twilight Zone. George Romero he takes a supernatural world existing alongside of our world. And there's no liminal space. Like he builds this world like his opening line for Tales from the Darkside. This will give us a big insight, right? Man lives in the sun-lit world of what he believes to be reality, but there is an unseen by most an underworld. So right off the bat, this is two parallel worlds that exist. We are kind of uniquely tied to this world, and while they say it's not necessarily evil, they say it's not evil, but it kind of feels insidious to me. Right? It does feel that you have like monsters and like weird, like it is very Predator. So in this world, you get all kinds of stuff, right? You get witches, you get ghosts, you get demons, you get vampires, you get cursed objects, monsters, magical creatures, and supernatural beings. So right off the bat, what you get in comparison to the Twilight Zone is very different. So this is an expanded world of creatures. And these stories feel like more like urban legends than anything else. So it's a kind of horror that finds like, it's a mysteriousness about it that you regret later. Like you see something and you're like, what is this? And then you regret whatever you did later on. It was at the carnival, right? It was at the fairgrounds. It was all around you. It was a lot more cultural. And it focuses on this like creeping dead. So there's a lot of like the dead coming back. And we kind of see it, and it's interesting because it's kind of a hole, right? Like it doesn't give you anything back. You don't get a host or anything like that. So it's almost like you're just kind of vibing off yourself in this or the void. So you do kind of feel like you're walking to this void. And all like their biggest episodes, like you got a lot of like folklore tales mixing that. You have a man discovers a strange creature live inside of a hotel closet that he had befriends. You have the artist who, befriends or falls in love with what he thinks is a woman, but it's some type of, demonic succubus. He has children with her. It's all these tales, all these cultural impact tales. They're very graphic, so it stands out in a whole different world, right? Like it is absolutely like George Romero's work here. Yeah, it was very, very packed. Like at the height of storytelling, I would absolutely label George Romero at that level. Okay. Then we get my man here, the Crypt Keeper. Now the Crypt Keeper, of course, is that this is where the comic book world inserts itself. Like comic books are always a big part of storytelling. Like so many of our stories come from comic books, or stories go from myth and tales and go into comic books. So this comes from EC Comics. It premieres 1989. It ran for like 7 years. HBO, this is 93 episodes. And we saw lots of powerhouse directors. Zemeckis, Joel Silver, Walter Hill. These are like powerhouse producers and directors in Hollywood at this time. And every episode was introduced by the Crypt Keeper himself, right? Like this dude had to laugh. Like he would get down, right? Like I love the Crypt Keeper, man. I'm not gonna lie about it, guys. Like the Crypt Keeper, man, he was just absolutely, to me, at the top of his game. He was, to me, the only one I ever saw that would like, oh, you know what? Yeah, they also stole from they also would have stolen from a Creep Show, right? They would have borrowed that, right? They definitely would have borrowed that. But yeah, that's okay. So I do see him as like the ghoul in the Crypt Keeper. I actually see 100% what they're talking about, right? So or what I'm talking about, should I say? Like that's 100% it. But he's just an enduring character. There's a lot. This was a lot more macabre storytelling, right? This is a lot more darker. He kind of comes off as maybe like more like a trickster god. Like that's kind of who he is. Like he, and like not a trickster god, but a trickster figure. Like we see a lot in mythology.
he's able to he cracks jokes, and honestly, that was his appeal. For like my grandpa, that was the appeal. He thought the Crypt Keeper was hilarious. Like his jokes beforehand, right? Whatever he would say, like, he's screaming for her attention, or ha, right? Or, she's gonna have a ghoulish day, right? It's a ghoulish night out, or something like that. Like that's what the Crypt Keeper would do. He was known for the classic one-liners. And they got a full set of like beings that you see in here. Like in this series, you got zombies, you got demons, you got revenge ghosts, cursed object, you got killer animals, supernatural transformations, demonic bargains, murderous conspiracies. So this was not subtle and refined in the way that, Twilight Zone was. It was raw. This is gory spectacle. This is very dark humor. It's like poetic justice. Like many stories revolve around like people getting punished for stuff they did. Like greed and betrayal was big. It was a mad dark comedy though. They want to laugh at jokes of people like getting mutilated, getting their heads cut off. That's who they were, which is human cruelty a lot of wells. And all this stuff, like, man, I'm telling you, man, like famous episodes like the Christmas, the Santa Claus Christmas, man, where Santa like terrorized a woman on Christmas Eve. Like there's this like TV episode, oh man, where like you go to investigate a haunted mansion and realize that it's real when you get there. And it had a huge cultural impact. This is kind of adult horror on the screen. That's really what it came out to be. So out of these three shows, this is like the triad of watching it, man. This is a triad of like horror shows, late night TV. Like the Crypt Keeper is like the trickster, and everybody else kind of falls in line. It's got the philosopher, who is the Twilight Zone. You got the dark, storyteller is the Darkside, and the trickster is the Crypt Keeper. And that's kind of sums up like how these shows operated, and a lot of shows come out of it. Like a lot of stuff came down. Like think Bordello of Blood, you think Demon Knight that came out of Tales from the Crypt. Like it's definitely a banger, man. It's definitely an absolute heavyweight when we talk about like produced shows in this country. So just wanted to kind of do a quick breakdown, kind of what I thought about all these shows here in common. Again, a triad theme. We talk about all these together. Hit me up if you guys have some more questions. As always, I appreciate you guys stopping in. I'll be back later. I'm going to do another breakdown for you guys. And I think I'm going to talk about rage. Like, there's a good angle on, like, figures that are all based on rage. I think it'll be a great breakdown, so you can join me there. And as always, hit that like and subscribe. I'm going to check out of TikTok now. So, TikTok, thanks, fam. I'll see you guys later. And then